I made a video yesterday that I want to dive deeper on, so stay with me for this one because I'm very interested in the historical context behind this question, because it's not because women are weaker that you see less representation of women throwing massive pots in the media. It's not that it doesn't exist, it does, but it's less common. And why? That question has been fascinating me. As someone who loved investigative journalism, I just can't help but be curious about this. And yes, it could be a fluke that some of these artists are just not discovered yet. But as someone who has been in the field for a while now, and who is actively always looking for master women to teach me, it is not as common as you might think based off of my lived experience. So here are my findings. I believe that honestly, women's technique for throwing larger pots is massively underdeveloped. The women who are throwing large in today's day and age honestly have had to develop their own techniques and have pioneered their own way of throwing massive lumps of clay, especially those who are doing single tower, huge lumps, like 30 to 60 pounds. I've only seen 2 women in my lifetime of studying ceramics, and I'm happy to hear more in the comments, but I have not found them yet, no matter how far I've searched, who can really move a huge lump of clay with absolute mastery. I've only met a few, one of them being the teacher I just took a workshop from, but it is not common. And the reason for that being, women were excluded from big production spaces. Women were not included in the big pot lineages, in the studios where the big pots were being made. Women were not historically in those spaces. Women were making the designs on the pots. I'll include sources for this down below, but they were doing more detail work. They weren't doing the massive throws. Take Japan, for example. Up until after World War II, women weren't even allowed to participate in pottery apprenticeships. Before the half of the last century, there were no women in these ongi places in South Korea making these gigantic pots and learning how to adapt it for their own bodies. The techniques that were passed down for making big pots were adapted and made for men. So a woman might learn how to throw big from a man and be expected to hold her wrists stiff in her joints and expected to lift the clay and generate torque using her chest and shoulder muscles, which is just not realistic for female mechanics. So a lot of times women learn male techniques and have to completely adapt them and change them for how they're able to use them. As a woman who is learning how to throw large and has learned just now in my later career from women how to use my body and my body leverage correctly, I would like to see techniques made with women in mind made to be more of the standard rather than the exception. And even though it might be uncommon because maybe historically we were excluded from some of these big throwing technique spaces, women are quietly